That's been the biggest thing. It's like you have to be able to explain every single number and reference and tie out. And obviously, that's a lot that goes into that, but that's kind of, what they pay us to do and make sure that, we can sign off with reasonable assurance.
Do you have any tips for people who are new, like who are about to start their first job from college? What should they do to make them stand out in the first or second
Yeah.
year at mid-tier firm?
Honestly, the biggest thing, in my opinion, is go into the office. If the biggest thing is when you're working, especially in our industry, with people that are older than you who have more experience, they're more old school typically and want to be in the office, and things just kind of fall into your lap. You learn a lot more, and just being that familiar face really kind of helps you set yourself apart. So that's the biggest thing. I was always going in the office, in the Orange County office in Boston. Like it just helps at the end of the day. Like Teams and video calls are great, but there's no real substitute for being in office. And then I would say the other thing is just like communication and just doing the little things. Like nobody, even through your senior years, is going to expect you to do everything right or know everything technically, but it's just like client communication, following up, not missing statuses, showing up professionally, being on time. Those are the things that are going to show up in your performance reviews for probably the first 2 to 3 years. So just handling those honestly will kind of right the ship technically, as you get up to speed on, the audit background, the tax background, the softwares. That all comes with time. But people definitely just kind of remember those little things.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing, that when you go to the office and work with people around in the office, a lot of time you can learn from listening to conversations from other people as
Yeah.
well. People may talk about, hey, this is a tax code that I'm working on. Have you worked on this one before? Or you're like, oh, we have this issue with a client. Have you dealt with this? And so you may not do those things now, but just have that background stories in your head. When it comes to you say, oh, I heard that conversation from the other day in the office. This is what they do. Maybe I should try it. So yeah, I love that of advice, like going to the office, especially when it is a virtual world right now. Everyone's working from home. So I feel like when the fact that you make the effort to go into the office, people notice that. People say,
No,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say 100%. It definitely makes people understand that, you're taking your career seriously. You want to be there. It's just an extra added layer that I think really means a lot to employers and helps you stand out.
Yeah, yep. I love that tip. And Hayden, after you work in Anderson for 2 years, you decide to move to EY, a bigger firm, and then work in audit instead of tax. What
Yeah.
made you make that move?
So for me, the move to audit was kind of just a bridge of understanding that I really liked working on my entities. I just like operating businesses and stuff like that a little bit more than the trust and individual side of tax. So I kind of wanted to get just more experience in that and kind of open up different, opportunities down the line, kind of like the opportunity that we discussed at the top, in regards to what I'll be pursuing next. And I just thought it would kind of help round out my career resume. Ultimately, being that early on, I didn't want to just go down the tax route. I wanted to have different options, and I thought it would kind of help me be a more well-rounded finance professional. So also demographically wanted to switch out and get to a different market. So EY kind of checked all those boxes, especially getting to join an incredible FSO audit group. It was just, amazing experience and super grateful for it. So yeah, once I hit that 2-year mark, was open to the opportunity, kind of fell into place, and just kind of jumped at it. But also wanted to kind of pitch it to you right now and kind of get your understanding, considering you kind of did the backwards flip. You
Yeah.
started in audit and made it to tax. So that's obviously my perspective, making the switch from tax to audit. But what was your rationale, and why did you start out in audit versus make the transition to tax?
That's interesting. For me, when I start working in public, because for my background, I work in private for 5 years first, and with 5 years experience, is in private is actually very helpful for audit, because you audit financial statements in private. Like when you work in audit, you actually go to the private to audit their financial statement. That's what I worked before for 5 years. And also a lot of people saying that, Rosey, you are so extrovert. you love talking to people, you love going out, and so you should go audit because that's what people do for audit. They all extrovert people. And I was like, huh, interesting. Because I had an opportunity to work in tax at that time and I denied it. I said, nope, I'm going to go for audit. That's what people told me. I should go for audit. And, and so when I work in audit, it's great. But for me, I feel like something's still missing because yes, I'm extrovert. Yes, I like to go out. But when I know that when I go to the client office, people don't like you. They treat you like police, like, oh, that's auditor, don't talk to them. Oh, that auditor, be careful what you tell them. They may ask you more information. They may ask you more supporting documents. And so I was like, that's not fun as I expect. And so that's what I was like, okay, let me try text because I always think that text is not that fun. But when I moved to text, I really like it. I like it so
Mhm.
much that I was like, wow, it's not about introvert or extrovert. It's
Yeah,
about the type of work, what you enjoy to do. I like to
yeah,
do all the code reading or the searching about different regulations. I say, it is so much more fun.
yeah.
And I think that's the main reason why I moved to tax because I feel like something missing for me in audit. I was like, I
Okay,
don't find that fun. I don't find that fulfilled for me doing audit. Even I know that I'm extrovert. Even I know that it's typical audit people. They are normally extrovert people. So yeah,
okay.
that's
So
my reason why I moved tax to audit.
okay, so it ultimately kind of came down to the technical side. You like the IRS code, working
Uh-huh.
on different tax engagements,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
didn't
love that.
necessarily
I can just
didn't.
listen to that all day long and read about that all day long, all those codes. And
Yeah,
don't quote me wrong. That audit, we have a lot of readings as well. You had to
yeah,
read a lot about the rules, about the financial statements. But it's just
yeah,
different way, in different way.
yeah,
That's what I
yeah.
say. Yeah. But people always say that, wow, I always see people move from tax to audit. They don't see many people move from audit to tax. So when I
Yeah.
made the change, people are pretty surprised. Like, are you sure you want to go for tax?
Hey, it worked out well, and now you're enjoying it. So
Yeah,
not you don't always have to follow the advice of everybody else.
I know. You just have to listen to yourself. Just need to
Exactly.
see what make you feel happy and what you feel passionate about. But
Hmm.
Hayden, I want to follow up one question that you move from tax to audit. What skills in tax that you feel that is super helpful for you in audit?
It's always the detail oriented aspect. I mean, at the end of the day, like whatever accounting profession you're going into, everything is all kind of in the details. So getting that early understanding, something that didn't really come naturally to me, I think is the biggest thing. Also, it's just kind of like the communication and the status tracking. The biggest thing in public accounting is just having an understanding of where everything's at. I would say audit more than anything too, and tax more or less along the same lines, but sometimes you can get just like one big engagement that's a little bit easier to keep track of. But it's those two things. First and foremost, just being detail oriented. Obviously, we're kind of playing in the details, making sure that certain things tie out. We have all the information, and one little thing can kind of be a big hiccup in either industry. And then the other thing is just being organized, like having a way to track every single thing, whether that's admin stuff so your firm gets paid, whether that's technical stuff so you can move the engagement forward, or whether that's, support or different research that you have to do. Just keeping all that engaged and making sure that it can flow and that there's no hiccups, I would say are the biggest things.
Yeah. Do you have to do a lot of referencing in audit?
Yeah,
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 that's what
a
something
ton.
I have to cut it down when I move to tax because
Yeah,
when I move to tax, I reference every single thing, and then we don't do that in tax. But
yeah,
in audit,
yeah.
you have to do a lot of referencing.
And that's been the biggest thing. It's like you have to be able to explain every single number and reference and tie out. And obviously, that's a lot that goes into that, but that's kind of, what they pay us to do and make sure that, we can sign off with reasonable assurance.
I know, right? That's something that I have to adjust from audit to tax. So I know detail oriented is super helpful for you when you move from tax to audit, but what did you have to adjust from tax to audit when you
Hun-
make the transition?
100% it's the client facing. I was very interested, considering my path in tax. I had a little bit of client exposure, especially as I was acting in a senior capacity fairly early on in my career. But it was more just like one-offs that was like a pretty, detailed deliverable, whether that was a tax payment, whether that was a tax return, whether that was a notice. Everything was like very much like, I would say, calculated and laid out, and probably went through a couple levels of review. So when I got to audit, and I think literally the first day they asked me to email the client, I was like very hesitant. I was like, well, can you read it first? Can you make sure? And then I just obviously quickly found out, like, you're talking to these people all the time, and understanding, how to serve a client, what they need. Like you said, like, not everybody's always the happiest, to talk to us. But at the end of the day, everybody's trying to do their job. So being able to understand, when you can ask for things, kind of the soft skills, I would say, is the biggest thing that I had to adjust. I think thankfully I was pretty strong here, but it definitely helped me take it to another level because, you're having status calls every week, you're leading engagements, you're talking to people, even within the firm. In a firm like EY, we engage so many specialists within our firm, whether that's the strategy and transaction side within EYP, stuff like that. It's just like really like teaming and understanding how individuals operate that kind of help, move engagements forward that I got little to no experience during my time in tax.
That's so true. Talking about client face is just the huge difference between audit and tax.
Yeah.
And I want to add that for people who listening, like for in tax, it doesn't mean that you don't communicate with clients. It's just that you don't communicate with the client at a lower level. As an associate or senior, you don't communicate with the client, but as a manager or above, you communicate with the client a lot. But for audit, it doesn't matter which level. You face with the client right away in the first day.
Yeah.
And so that's something that people want to see the difference between audit and tax. So because you have both experience in both audit and tax, so if someone comes to you and asks, hey, you have experience for both, what would you recommend me to start my career? What would you say?
I would say it just depends on what you know that you want out of your career. If you know that you want to be in tax, which obviously offers an incredible career path, jump at it. There's no reason not to start there. You do get paid a little bit slightly more. It's a little bit more understanding, and you definitely just like kind of jump in right away. Audit, on the other hand, I would say if you're on the fence, maybe you don't 100% know whether, you want to go down audit, you want to make a partner, you want to go to industry, you want to pivot. I think audit opens a lot of different doors, whether, that's following a great audit career path to make partner at any type of firm, whether that's big four, mid-tier, small tier, or leaving. I think audit just kind of opens different doors and has plenty of opportunities versus tax is obviously a very narrow niche, great opportunity to kind of get out first thing out of undergrad.
I agree. That's true. The when you work in a lot of time when you work in audit, a lot of time people will go to private and become like the CEO, the CFO, become the controller. But for tax, it's different because for tax, you work on tax return. Even yes, you look at the financial statements, but you don't really understand a lot of different aspects of financial statements as you do in audit. So the exit way when in for tax in public accounting, a lot of time that you either working in the tax department for a big company in private, or you just move out and then do your own practice or work at for the tax. But again, it's kind of the same kind of public environment as well for tax purpose. So it's something for you to consider how you want in the future. But you know what? Sometimes I feel like it's very difficult for people to know what they want right after college.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing. And honestly, EY is doing a great job right now. They've just launched this new venture called EY 360 Careers, where basically every new hire has to take at least one rotation in another group to kind of see, whether they like it, learn new skills, stuff like that. And I do think overall the CPA industry and public accounting should be a little bit more flexible. I know it was very difficult for me to go from being a tax senior to getting any sort of experienced offer in the audit side. And I think it's just kind of a stigma that can be changed. Like at the end of the day, if you're a working professional in any industry, you can pick up on other things, but we really kind of silo professionals where it's like, hey, if you have 3 years of tax experience, we want you to basically start over. obviously there's a big learning curve, but I feel like we should be kind of opening the doors to being a little bit more open to having quote unquote like non-traditional professionals taking on different roles.
Yeah, I think the profession is making a lot of changes to adapt to what's going on right now, and also to attract more talent to our profession as well. Because it seems like people are afraid of all the hours, all the burnout, all the stress from working in public. But you know what? Public and private sometimes it's not that much difference, because in public you may have busy season for the deadline, but in private you have busy time to close the book monthly.
Yeah.
You have to do reconciliation. You have to make sure that everything is done by month end, by year end. So those time is busy too. So when you consider public or private, tax or audit, make sure you talk to people, understand all different pros and cons before you actually say, okay, this is going to be my career forever. Like, don't worry about forever, because you still can change no matter what.
No, yeah, 100%. They typically don't talk about book close, quarter close, year end close when they talk about private. And honestly, a lot of times these people are helping facilitate our audits and stuff. So they work a lot of hours too. And obviously accounting does lead to a great career path, but obviously always want to be transparent about the workload and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I want to pivot the conversation to the next topic. It is about technology. Because I know it's pretty hot topic right now when AI just like so strong. I was so surprised how strong it is when I came back to work after my like 4 or 5 months maternity leave. And I was like, oh my God, it's everywhere now.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So what do you think about the technology right now with AI like dominating a lot in our industry?
Yeah. I mean, you see it in the headlines all the time. You see the P roll ups that they're going to come in and implement AI and streamline all these, different firms so that they can, boost profitability. It's taking entry level jobs, et cetera. I know during my time at EY, they were spending a ton of money on different initiatives, whether chatbots, AI tools for audit, tax, et cetera. And I think it's great. Like you said, it's really changing the landscape and allowing us to be a lot more efficient and do more roles. I do personally think it's a lot overblown though. Like, I don't know about your perspective on the tax side. And obviously there was a little bit of it when I was there with different softwares like SurePrep and different OCR readings and stuff like that. But even my time here in audit, when it's a little bit more advanced, it's not taking the role of an individual anytime soon. It's very much a tool to help us streamline our processes and make our job more effective and help us in our review and help solve different pain points that we have. But there's no substitute for having, as we say at EY, the human in the loop. Like, we have to be there driving the force and using these tools. So, well, I think it's great and it is going to help us, especially, if there is an accountant shortage, which there most likely will be, and, people don't want to pursue the CPA, letting us utilize these AI tools is ultimately going to help us, help firms make more money, which ultimately should, trickle down to the employees and the partners and wherever you want to work in public accounting or industry. But I think it's great. Obviously, we have to evolve with different technology being rolled out, but I think it is a little overblown on how invasive it's going to be and how, detrimental to our career trajectory.
I think I read an article the other day about how Big Fours actually evaluate performance on staff, how they use AI in their work as well. Does that happen at
Yeah.
EY as well?
There's a ton of different engagements ongoing all the time on building out different AI chat agents and stuff like that to streamline processes, especially on like the admin and really not like value add side. Like, really what you want to be doing is just cutting out all that like tick and tie and random stuff. But yeah, 100%. I mean, as the young professionals, we have to be the ones that are pushing this stuff forward. People who are, later on in their careers are spending their time on strategy, decision making, client relationships. And yeah, ultimately, our the lower ranked senior staffs and managers have to be the ones kind of pushing these projects forward. So it's definitely, part of the way that people look at professionals nowadays on how their different like AI acumen per se.
Yeah, that's just crazy. It does make our work seem to be easier, but at the same time, you have to make sure that staff use AI, they understand what they are talking about, because AI can make it look right, but it's
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah, exactly. It can make stuff pretty, but it doesn't always necessarily come out right. What about on the tax side? What are you seeing? I'm sure it's like implemented in all the softwares, and stuff like that. And do you see it ultimately being able to take that kind of first step? Because I think ultimately the goal of AI, at least what I've heard in public accounting, is to basically turn staff and preparers into that first level of review. Do you
Yeah,
kind of see that as like a realistic step?
I would love to see that. I think that's really good future if we can use AI to do just all the prep, and then we have the first year staff to just start doing the reviewing right away. It means that their starting salary will be higher because they're not going to do like very low task, and that's going to be just for technology, and they're going to advance their skills at very early career. It means they can move up sooner, and then they can see the career more promising than just doing all tedious little task and then feel like, oh my god, I hate this job. It is not what I'm looking for after graduation. I don't look at the Excels and then tie up all the numbers, and then questioning like, how do I apply accounting knowledge that I studied in class to just working on the Excel with tying all the numbers that doesn't need any degree at all.
Yeah.
So I would love to see that if we can get to that point. For now, we're not getting to that point yet. And we're using a lot of offshore talents that we chance we bring the tax return to Indian staff, and then prepare them, and then we review. So a lot of time I know is that lower, like first year or second year staffs, we already try to like, hey, we have staff from Indian's office to prep. You can start doing the review now. That could be a very good opportunity for staff. They can do that at the very early career stage.
Yeah. No, 100%. You hit it right on the head there.
Yeah. Talking about, I forgot to ask you one more question before technology. Because you work in both audit and tax, I'm just curious for busy season how different it is.
I would always define tax as a sprint versus audit very much as a marathon. And obviously, it's all, at least on the audit side, it's all very dependent on your clients. Obviously, there's a million different reporting deadlines and filing deadlines, whether you're working on international clients, US based clients, public, private. On the tax side, it's pretty structured. Like, you have your 315, your 415, your 930, or sorry, your 915, 910 1015. Like, you basically know 99% of returns are going to fall on those deadlines. So you know when you're going to be busy. Audit, on the other hand, is, like I said, a marathon. Like for me, for example, our quote unquote busy season runs from beginning of the year, January 1-ish to about May. But I would say that's a pretty consistent, 50 to 60 hour work weeks that whole time. Versus, as I'm sure you know, there can be weeks leading up to a tax deadline that approaches a little bit higher than that, if not much higher than that. Especially just considering how deadline driven stuff is. In audit, there's a little bit more ambiguity. Like there's a lot of, leniency baked into the reporting deadlines, but I would say that's the main thing. Tax, you know that there's going to be some dead sprints like right leading up to the deadlines, and you know exactly when those deadlines are going to be on the state side, the Fed side, etc. On audit, it really kind of depends on what your engagements are. There can be even some like 930 filings where your, late summer is super busy compared to like year end. So that's the biggest thing too. And audit is just also not as much like spike, I would say. Like a lot of times we are tied to, what the client can provide us, and there's a lot more downtime versus tax. The client gives you your work and there's no stopping. There's nothing you're really asking for. You just have to get that return filed. So I would say that's the biggest difference.
I'm sorry, all the noise in the background. We have some construction in the house today, so I hope that is not too much noise for the audience to hear me talking, interviewing
No
Hayden.
worries.
So Hayden, we talk a lot about the career. We talk a lot
Mm-hmm.
about busy season, transitioning, CPA exam. I'm just curious, what do you do for fun? Some fun fact that you want to share with the audience?
For me, it's always just about travel and like spending time with friends and family. Obviously, like we've talked about it a little bit here, like the profession can be very demanding and hours can be long, especially certain times of the years. But I would say one pro to it is outside of those peak times, whether it's tax or audit, you do get a lot of time away. EY had an incredible unlimited PTO policy. At Anderson, we had plenty. I had much more PTO than a lot of my other friends and colleagues who were in other industries. So taking advantage of that to travel a lot, spend time with friends is really what I do outside of work. But what about you? What do you do enjoying Boston when it's not the freezing cold in the winter?
Well, I didn't have much time to enjoy because I moved to Boston and shortly after that I got pregnant. So,
This is true.
so all my time is with just with pregnancy and with
Yeah.
the baby since I moved to Boston. Before we finish this interview,
Uh-huh.
can you share some tips and advice for young professionals in this profession?
I would say the biggest thing, kind of like we talked about early on, was go into the office and just kind of start making a brand for yourself. I would say that's one thing that the industry, especially on the tax side, doesn't really talk enough about, is like the soft skills and stuff that kind of helps you build up your career. Audit, it comes a little bit more naturally with all the client facing and just the nature of the industry. But I think it's really important to start building that network because it can be really easy to, blink and you're 3 years into your career and you really haven't met with anybody outside of your engagement team, which obviously I've kind of tried to help cultivate through 444 CPA, and you've done an incredible job at CPA Career Paths. But yeah, I would say those two things: get into the office, make sure you're connecting with not only your colleagues, but the people above you, whether that's your managers, senior managers, partners, and then just kind of having conversations, whether that's with people in public accounting, whether that's people in industry, or just other, professions to kind of help open doors whenever.
Thank you so much, Hayden. That's a great advice there for young professionals. But seems like we tackle a lot of hot topics about the CPA exam, working as audit and tax, and also tips and advice for young professionals as well. I would love to connect with you, Hayden, again in the future to see what opportunity you would like to share with the audience later.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, thanks for having me on. Like you said, this was a great conversation, kind of breaking down my transition from tax to audit, yours from audit to tax, and definitely happy to connect here sometime in 2026, talk more about what we both have going on, and keep the conversation going and pushing the career path forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Hayden.
Awesome. Have a wonderful holidays. Talk soon.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.